Hey, welcome back to the JK Moto Entertainment Channel. Welcome back once again to Stable B, our favorite place. Today, we're going to be talking about something that's not so fun to talk about. No one really wants to talk about it, but it does happen, so I think we got to talk about it, and that is going to be putting a bike down on the track. So we're specifically going to talk about some real life statistics. I did some work on getting some statistics for you guys about how often, when, how long before it happens, and then also some things you can do to maybe prevent it if that's your goal, or how you can have successful track days, and we'll kind of get into what a wreck is and what that actually means and why it can be good, can be bad. So let's go ahead and get into that. Before we get into it, please subscribe to the channel. As always, throw a like on the video if you're enjoying it down below. And if you have any questions about this, or if you have any feedback, or really for you, those of you that have done a lot of track days, have some experience with this, or you're racing already, or whatever it might be, I do ask that you leave your feedback and your experiences down below also, so that everyone else coming to this video isn't just hearing it from me. I want to build an awesome community here at the JK Moto Entertainment Channel. I need that to come from you guys also, so we have a very well-rounded section of opinions, because the internet is full of opinions. I don't want them to just be mine. So if you're here for the first time, check the comments down below to get some of those other real world experiences. But stick around in this video. We'll kind of talk about how often it happens, when it happens, why it might happen, how you can prevent it, and whether or not it's a big deal. So let's get into the video. Wrecking a motorcycle. It is, it's not fun. If you look behind me here, I think you might be able to see it. There's some scratches here, and there's another bike off to my left here that has duct tape all over it, and that stuff happens. Like, we get it, it happens. And at a track day, I think sometimes people think it's way less likely. I think they think it's way more likely. So I did pose a question on Facebook, on a very special Facebook group called Track Day Addicts, about just some real life, like, hey, how many track days did you go before you wrecked your bike? And I wanted to get an average on that. So I'll pull up a chart. The average, this is out of a sample size of 80, so 80 total comments is what I got back for the numbers. And there's some more coming in, but I didn't have time to sort through all of them. And of course, they're gonna keep coming because, you know, that's how social media works. But 80 total samples with an average of 9.68 track days before you hit a wreck. With our highest ever before this guy wrecked was 82 track days. And obviously the lowest was first track day. We had quite a few of those. And then some of the samples said that they had never crashed a bike at a track day yet. So we just put those as zeros. So there's actually quite a few zeros on that chart that you're looking at there. So you can kind of see that dot work on that chart is kind of cool. I think it shows an actual kind of interesting, but for the majority, you look at there's some outliers. The majority of those are gonna range in that under 10 kind of range, i.e. you get to about 10 track days and you've probably wrecked a bike at this point. So this video is for the people that haven't wrecked yet, or for the people that are trying to decide if they're gonna do track days or not, to kind of get some real life, like, hey, this is actual data from the actual people that are out there doing it, not from some computer model, not from anything else. It's just me asking, how many track days did you do before you wrecked a bike, and putting all that in together into a number for you, which, like I said, is 9.68. So about 9.5 to 10 track days. So somewhere on that 9th track day, you're gonna wreck your bike. Now, I'm not saying you're 100% gonna wreck your bike on that 9th track day. Not even a little bit. But what I am saying is that on average, that's what we see, right? And once again, this is a pretty small sample size of only 80 people, but those are only 80 people that are like doing this and actually care to answer that question. So I think it's a relatively reasonable statistic to go off of. When I asked that question, I got quite a few interesting answers. Most of them were just some numbers, but a lot of people had some kind of input on that. And once again, I implore you to go check in the comments. And if you're not checking in the comments, but you have something to say about it, add that to the comments down below, please. But I found that people had quite a few different experiences, and there are definitely some things you can do to maybe lengthen that out. Now, I'm gonna start off by saying that wrecking a motorcycle at a racetrack is not necessarily a bad thing. In fact, compared to other places in the world you could wreck a motorcycle, i.e. the highway, the road, your driveway or parking garage, whatever it might be, a racetrack is generally a safer place to do that. Now, there are often higher speeds. I'm gonna put quotations around that also, because I don't think that just because you're at a racetrack doesn't mean, sorry, let me see how to phrase that. There are plenty of people that are not doing track days that are still going just as fast as people that are doing track days and are out on actual race tracks. So I don't think that just because you're on a track means you're going wickedly fast and you have to I don't think that's a thing. What I can say is that wrecking at a racetrack, you have medical on site. They're only there for you and whoever else is at that track day. Most track day organizations will have, well, 2 ambulances available. I can't put most on that, I apologize. But you'll have 2 ambulances available. That's because if one leaves to take someone to the hospital, you can't go again until there is an ambulance there at the track dedicated for it. And that's required for the track day insurance, for the track itself insurance, for many different rules, but you're gonna have ambulance there. They're gonna be available to take you off right away if you do need that help. The other thing too is that once again, there's no extra cars. There's generally not other people. There's not stoplights. There's no one going the opposite direction. We saw some comments about some people maybe doing the wrong thing, but there are a lot of safety things in place there for that. And then on top of that, you are required to wear full safety gear, right? You have to have a full leather suit, not necessarily one piece, but it has to be at least zipped together so it doesn't come up and ride up your back. You have to have gauntlet gloves. You have to have over the ankle boots. You have to have a full face helmet. That helmet has to meet a very specific safety requirement. There's all this gear you have to keep yourself safe out there on the racetrack. So I think of all the places to wreck a motorcycle, the track is probably the safest place to do it. Keep that in mind. We're gonna go through a couple of different things you can do to help yourself maybe not wreck, or at least not wreck as soon, and maybe make sure that when you do wreck, you actually get the most out of it, because there is some positive that can come out of putting a motorcycle down. So let's get into that. So we just got done talking about kind of the statistics of when you're gonna do it, what track day you'll be doing, and different things like that. And then kind of maybe why it's not such a big deal. I don't want to say it's not a big deal. You don't need to be putting a bike down. I'm not here to tell you that like you're gonna do a track day and you're gonna put your bike down and that's gonna be it. That is not what I'm trying to preach here. However, I like to be very realistic, very upfront, and data does show that in general, when people start doing track days, and especially when they start racing, they're gonna wreck some motorcycles. And that's just kind of, that's the realistic of it. I can't deny that. I can't say that that's not gonna happen. What I can say is that there are a lot of things you can do to make that happen further down the road. And I can also say that based off a lot of people's experience and my own personal experience, the further down the road that does happen, the more you will get from it and the better off you'll be. So a lot of those experiences that I saw when I was running the survey of like first track day was a whole lot of people recognizing that they didn't have the right body position. They weren't confident enough. They weren't leaning the bike over, they weren't leaning themselves over enough, so they were leaning the bike too far. Maybe their tires were cold. And kind of there was a lot of just that, right? Newbies out on the track, novice riders, people who've been on the road a whole lot, they get on the track for the first time, they maybe think they know what they're doing, and they go a little too hard. I have a couple friends that did kind of almost exactly that. I think one of them was a low side in a very sharp corner. First lap out, tires were still cold. Near the end of the day, so you got a few sessions under your belt, you're good to go, you're killing it, you think you're ready. You start pushing a little too hard and kind of, they forget some of those kind of safety things, the generals, the basics, different stuff like that, right? Your body position starts to fall off maybe a little bit because you're pushing for that lap time, or you think you're good to go, you've been doing it all day, you're good. You can't be stopped. Or just, the general of like, hey, I'm on street tires, I don't have tire warmers, I gotta wait for my tires to warm up. And so a lot of those things kind of start to fall off, especially at the end of your first track day. So I will say, one, if you're going to your first track day, you're just watching this video beforehand to get some kind of like feel for, am I gonna crash or not? Remember that. If you're getting near the end of the day and you've been doing great so far, not gonna tell you to back off, not gonna tell you to slow down, I'm just gonna tell you to remember that you're near the end of the day. You gotta focus and stay focused to make sure you're still doing everything right, because you've been successful so far, keep that up. That's kind of like the first day. Everyone else that fell in between that, like it wasn't my first day, but it was after that, I think it's kind of still general similar concepts. I'll have you know, on this list, I fell, I think around my 12th or 13th. I don't have an exact remembrance, but I did one track day, 1 year. I didn't go back for another year. And then my second year, which was really my first real year of doing it, I did about 6 track days, and the year after that, I did about 5, and then I put a bike down. And I put that bike down because I was pushing in a corner where there was not really, no pushing to be done there. I was adding throttle and adding lean and adding throttle and adding lean and adding throttle and adding lean. And when you do that, if you know anything about motorcycling, which most of you should if you're already on this channel watching this video, you put the bike down, and that's just how it's gonna go, right? That back tire is gonna say, nope, too much, ain't got it. It tips over, you have a low side. Not a big deal, but it does happen. The biggest thing I can say for if your goal is to never crash, a lot of people would argue that you're never gonna get fast. And I see that argument and I kinda believe in it. I kinda don't. I think that you can get faster and faster and faster without wrecking a bike. I think at some point you are going to find a limit if you are truly pushing to the limit. I don't know if you can truly find the limit without finding it and going over it a little bit, then you know exactly where it is. And especially as bikes change, tires change, your skill level changes, surface changes, that limit is always changing just a little bit. It's not necessarily like, here's the limit. On a Ducati V4R, you can do a 62.5 degree lean angle on these tires, period. No, sometimes it's cold. Sometimes you get a different rider. Sometimes it's a completely different set of conditions with humidity and the pressure outside, which is going to affect. Anyway, there's a lot that goes into it. So that limit is constantly kind of changing a little bit. So you will find, especially you get up to professional racing, they're laying bikes down from time to time. They're finding that limit. They know exactly where that limit is at that point, and then they can step down to just barely below it and ride right at that limit, right? Instead of right over it. So it is possible to get faster without doing it. It is also definitely possible to do track days without wrecking your bike. 100%, I'm all about it. If you're just out there to enjoy the weekend and enjoy the bike at a little bit faster and safer pace than you can on the road, go for it. You don't have to wreck a bike. Understand that there were also some of these comments and instances or samples, we'll say, bikes that have been put down or people that wrecked their bikes that were not their fault. And there's sometimes nothing you can do about it. Sometimes you get ran into by someone else that is pushing maybe a little too hard or just pushing in general. Sometimes there's coolant on the track from people driving cars out there. Sometimes there's oil from someone that might have been burning or spilling some oil. I guess not burning it, but spilling some oil on the track. Sometimes you'll come around in the corner and there's someone there that you didn't think was going to be there because they were on the wrong line or whatever else. On the racetrack, you generally, not generally, but 100% only care about what's in front of you and what you can see. So everything out there, nothing behind you. So if there's something happening behind you that you can't help, then you can't help it, and that'll happen sometimes. But I think I want to stick away from the negatives of crashing because I don't think crashing a motorcycle on a racetrack is something that we should be afraid of. I think it's just something that we should prepare for in the right way and make sure that when it does happen, or if it does happen, that we are fully ready for it and we can get the most out of it, because there is definitely some learning points you can find there. Once again, we kind of talked about finding that edge or finding the limit, if you will, the limit of traction. If you don't know what the last 20% looks like, finding 100% isn't gonna do you any good. It's just not. And so I would caution you, and my stance on this has always been that there's a cliff, right? That's kind of the analogy I use. There's a cliff of traction. So you've got the plane going up to the cliff and then it falls off and there's no more traction out there. Obviously, that's the edge of the cliff and you fall off. And you can either sprint at that cliff, and as you get to the edge of it, you have no idea what's actually there because you're just sprinting and sprinting and sprinting, and you fall off the edge, and then you get back up on the cliff and you're like, well, I don't know what it looked like. Let's go do it again. That's one way to do it. The other way is to kind of approach that cliff very cautiously and very slowly and take a look around you as you're coming to the cliff, and maybe even kind of skirt and lean off the edge of the cliff a little bit. I'd call that when your back tire kind of slips out and you save it, or maybe you come in a little too hot on the brakes. I don't know. I don't have exact specifics for that. But I think that finding that edge of the cliff in a slower manner, in a more controlled manner, so you actually have a good picture of what that last 20% looks like, can do to you a lot more when you do finally find that limit, go over it, and put a bike down on the track. So I was also warned by a comment. I do appreciate that comment of, being careful, adjusting your outlook. You should not be going to do a track day to be like, all right, when is this crash going to happen? Your goal should not be to crash. Even the people that are out there trying to find the limit are not trying to crash a bike. They're not going to go out there. If we wanted to do that, we want to do track days. We would just go down to the edge of our driveway and chuck our bikes over and say, hey, I crashed a bike, whoop-dee. You don't want to do that. Your goal should not be to crash a bike at a track day. You should not be waiting for the crash to happen. You shouldn't be like, all right, Easton said 10 track days. I've done 11 now, so I'm probably going to crash today. You shouldn't have that in the back of your head. And I don't want you coming out of this video thinking, okay, I'm going to crash on my 10th track day. If I don't do that, then what do I do? Because if you look at the sample, I'll pull that up again real quick. You look at the chart. That chart has people all over, up, down, like I said, up to 82. There's a couple 50, 60 track days in there, a couple people in the high 20s. It's a big range. On average, it's within your first 10. And there's quite a few that it's on your first track day. So I'm kind of trying to curb that a little bit. Let's get the data out there. This is it. This is the data. How can we prevent that? I think the biggest thing is when you get comfortable on your first track day, it's time to take a step back and realize you shouldn't be comfortable yet. And just remember the basics. Remember all the things you've done good so far that day. Don't be pushing. You never want to push hard. Well, I don't really believe in that either. But a lot of people will tell you shouldn't push hard in your last session of the day. You're not going to gain anything. It's just the last session. There are definitely times where I take my last session and I just enjoy it, right? I go out, I bring it down maybe to 85, 90% because I know that, hey, I'm almost there. I'm going to take the bike home today. We're not going to have any scratches, whatever, cool. And like I said, I put some bikes down. We got some scratches over there on the bike, but that way you just enjoy your last session. It was a good day. You pack up, you go home, everyone's happy. You don't have to spend any extra money. Generally, if you haven't learned it by then, if you haven't found the secrets by then, you're not going to find them. That being said, that there have been a couple track days where I specifically used my last session of the day to truly push. But the funny part is I actually wasn't pushing. I actually turned my lap timer off and I went out and I said, I am just gonna have fun. And I got in a groove and I ended up dropping, you know, a second or a half a second or hit that next PB, whatever it might be. So I would like for, as a group of track day junkies like we are, to slowly kind of steer away from this first track day. And if you're bringing buddies out, let them know, right? Maybe show them this video, say, hey, here's the statistics. Let's see if we can beat that today. Every track day you go to, they're gonna stand up in the riders meeting and be like, we're gonna have no crashes today, right everybody? No red flags. And then you're gonna, like, third session in, if not before that, you're gonna have a red flag. And then it's just gonna tumble and go. And we can get away from that. Once again, I'm not saying we shouldn't wreck motorcycles 100%. It's gonna happen, 100%. I do think that at some point it needs to happen. I don't think you have to do it. I think there's ways to do it both ways. I'm really trying to kind of keep my full opinions out of it a little bit, but this is the internet. That's what this is for, is opinions. So once again, if you have any opinions on the matter, please share them down below. If you have any experiences, or maybe you're one of those guys that made it 82 track days, or maybe you're one of the ones that are sitting at 25, 30, haven't put it down yet. Maybe you're even racing and haven't put it down yet. Please put your experiences down below in the comments. I want to hear about them, and everyone else watching this video could also use them, so that hopefully we can continue to be better and we can have a real life look at, like, what does it take to not wreck a bike as often? How can I prevent wrecks on my first track day? And then what can I do to make sure that when I do wreck my bike, I actually have a feel for where that limit is and I know what the last 20% is. So next week's video, which if you're watching this a week late, the link will be right up here for it, is going to talk about what to do after you wreck a bike and how to kind of, one, make sure your bike's good, make sure you're good, and then how to get the most out of it moving forward and get yourself ready to go. So please stick around on the channel. Once again, subscribe, click the button down below for that. Throw a like on the video, and if you have any questions, refer to the comments. They're probably answered down there, or leave me a comment with a question. You can also always hit me up on Instagram at JKMoto Entertainment. I can answer all questions there. Just private DM me, and we'll have a good chat about wrecking motorcycles or whatever else it might be. So thank you everyone for watching. Thanks for being here. We'll see you guys in the next video.